She arrives cloaked in shadow, heralded by the raven's cry, a whisper on the wind before the battle storm breaks. She is the Morrigan, Great Queen, Phantom Queen. Her name itself breathes mystery and power. Forget simple labels. She is not merely a goddess of war. She is the fury, the dread, the chilling prophecy whispered before the slaughter. She is the decider of fates, the weaver of destinies on blood-soaked fields. The Morrigan belongs to the Tuatha Dé Danann, a race of supernatural beings, godlike figures who ruled Ireland in mythic times. They weren't simply gods in the sky. They were beings of immense power, magic and skill, deeply connected to the land itself. Think of them as the magical aristocracy of ancient Ireland, masters of arts and druidry. But even among these powerful figures, the Morrigan held a unique and often terrifying prominence. Sometimes she appears alone, a singular, formidable presence. Other times she manifests as a trinity of sisters, the Morrigna, often named as Badb, Magh, and Nemain, or sometimes Anand, another name for the Morrigan herself. Badb, the scald crow reveling in carnage. Magh, linked perhaps to horses, sovereignty, and fury. Nemain, embodying the panic and frenzy of war. Are they separate goddesses, or different faces of the same complex, terrifying whole? The myths are ambiguous, reflecting the Celts' fascination with the power of three, amplifying her divine might. This triple nature underscores her pervasive influence, war, fate, and the very sovereignty of the land intertwined. Her power is not just brute force. She is a shapeshifter of unparalleled skill. One moment, a beautiful young woman offering aid or perhaps seduction. The next, an old hag, a harbinger of doom. She transforms into the slick, menacing eel in the water, the fierce she-wolf leading a deadly stampede, the hornless red heifer, or most famously, the hooded crow or raven, soaring above the battlefield, choosing the slain. This constant transformation speaks to her connection with the wild, untamed aspects of nature and fate, ever-changing, impossible to pin down, inherently dangerous. One of her most crucial appearances came before the Second Battle of Magh Tuiredh. This wasn't just any battle. It was a legendary conflict destined to decide who would rule Ireland. On one side were the Tuatha Dé Danann, the divine tribe the Morrigan belonged to. On the other were the Fomorians, powerful, often monstrous supernatural beings, sometimes depicted as giants. They represented chaotic forces and held oppressive power over the Tuatha Dé Danann at the time. This battle was about freedom and rightful rulership. The stakes were immense: freedom or continued subjugation. On the eve of Samhain, that mystical time marking winter's beginning when the veil between worlds thins, the Morrigan met with the Dagda. He was the great chieftain and father figure of her people, known for his strength and wisdom. He found her at a river, washing herself, standing astride the water, a potent image of her command over the land and its boundaries. There, they came together. This union was far more than mere passion. It was a sacred ritual. In Celtic belief, the land itself was often personified as a goddess. For a king or chieftain to rule rightfully, he needed to be symbolically wedded to the land. By uniting with the Dagda, the Morrigan, embodying the very sovereignty and fate of Ireland, bound the land's power to their cause. This sacred act ensured divine favor and guaranteed their success in the coming war. She promised him victory, offered crucial battle strategies, and vowed to unleash her terrifying magic against their foes. When the Second Battle of Magh Tuiredh raged, the Morrigan was not a distant observer. She was an active, terrifying force. She flew above the fray, a shrieking spectre, her cries inciting battle fury in her allies and striking terror into the hearts of their enemies. Some tales say she rained fire and blood, using her magic to directly assault the opposing ranks. She chanted powerful incantations, turning the tide when her people faltered. Her presence was a tangible weapon, shifting the battle's momentum, ensuring the Fomorians were defeated and her people victorious. After the victory which secured her people's reign, the Morrigan delivered two prophecies. The first was a glorious chant of peace, painting a picture of an ideal world in perfect balance, peace between sky and earth, abundance flowing like honey, strength and honor in every person, safety and security symbolized by strong shields and forts, nature thriving with fruit and deer. It was a vision of the golden age her people had just fought to achieve. But immediately, following this hopeful vision, she delivered a second profoundly dark prophecy. This foretold the eventual end of that world, a descent into utter chaos. Summers without flowers, cows without milk, and broken societal bonds with shameless women and strengthless men. It also brought universal betrayal, where sons turn against fathers and brothers against each other, and the complete decay of justice and the natural world. This stark contrast is key to her nature. The Morrigan embodies not just the potential for triumph and prosperity, but also the inescapable cycle of decay and destruction, the shadow that inevitably follows the light. Understanding figures like the Morrigan takes us deep into a different way of seeing the world. If you're finding this journey into Irish mythology fascinating, consider hitting that like button to support the channel. And let us know in the comments, which aspect of the Morrigan intrigues you most? Her shape-shifting, her prophecies, or her role in battle? We love hearing your thoughts. Perhaps the most famous and deeply personal story involving the Morrigan is her tumultuous relationship with the great Ulster hero, Cú Chulainn. He was Ireland's ultimate warrior, a demigod known for his battle frenzy, or Riastrad, and his tragic destiny. During the Tainbo Cuailnge, the cattle raid of Cooley, where Cú Chulainn single-handedly defended Ulster against the invading army of Queen Medb of Connaught, the Morrigan appeared to him. First, she came as a beautiful young woman, regal and alluring. She offered him her love, her aid in battle, her power. But Cú Chulainn, focused solely on his duty and perhaps wary of her divine nature, harshly rejected her. "I have no time for women's backsides," he famously retorted, utterly dismissing her advance. This rejection wasn't just rude, it was a fatal error. He scorned a goddess, a power tied to fate and the land itself. The consequences would be severe. Enraged, the Morrigan vowed vengeance. "It is at the guarding of thy death that I am, and I shall be," she warned him. During his next combat, a grueling duel at a ford, she made good on her threat. She attacked him relentlessly, shape-shifting to disrupt his fight. First, as an eel, she wrapped around his legs, trying to trip him in the water. He crushed her ribs with his heel. Then, as a gaunt grey wolf, she drove panicked cattle towards him, disrupting his stance. He blinded her in one eye with a slingstone. Finally, as a red, hornless heifer leading a stampede, she charged him. He shattered her leg with another stone. Despite her interference, Cú Chulainn wounded her in each form and still managed to defeat his human opponent. Later, exhausted after the fight, Cú Chulainn encountered an old woman milking a cow by the roadside. She was lame, blind in one eye, and her side was injured, bearing the exact wounds he had inflicted on the Morrigan's animal forms. Unrecognizing her, he was parched and asked for milk. She gave him 3 drinks, and with each drink, as was custom, he offered a blessing. "A blessing on you," he'd say, and each blessing healed one of her wounds. Only after she was fully restored did he realize who she was. "Had I known it was you," he lamented, "I would never have healed you. Too late." He had rejected her help, attacked her, and then unwittingly restored the very power that had sworn his demise. His fate was further sealed. The final, chilling encounter came just before Cú Chulainn's last battle. As he rode towards his doom, he saw an old woman at a river ford. This figure, often appearing as a hag, is known as the Bean Naig, the washer at the ford. Seeing her is a terrifying omen in Celtic lore. She washes the bloody shrouds or armor of those about to die in battle. The clothes she washes belong to the person fated to fall. This spectral figure is deeply connected to the Morrigan, often considered one of her aspects, specifically Bad Bee. She embodies her role as a harbinger of death on the battlefield. For Cú Chulainn, the sight was unambiguous. The washer was scrubbing his armor, staining the river red with his blood. It was the final, inescapable confirmation of the Morrigan's prophecy and his own impending death. He knew then his end was near. Mortally wounded in the ensuing fight, Cú Chulainn famously tied himself to a standing stone, so he could die on his feet, facing his enemies. No one dared approach, awed by his defiance, even in death. It was only when a crow landed on his shoulder that his enemies knew for certain the great hound of Ulster had fallen. That crow, in the heart of the myth, was the Morrigan, perched in grim triumph, witnessing the end she had prophesied and helped bring about. The Morrigan remains an enigma, goddess of battle, fate, prophecy, sovereignty, and transformation. A lone figure, a triple power, helper and hinderer, creator and destroyer. Her stories remind us that power is complex. Fate is often unavoidable, and the wild, primal forces of life and death demand respect. She is the shadow on the edge of perception, the cry of the raven, the inescapable truth of the turning wheel.